A proposal is something that we use to pitch a partnership. And it's like you would never propose on the first date, or you would never send a proposal to someone you've never met before. So I think sometimes, something as common sense as that slips our mind. Erica and I had a meeting with someone who is in the motorsports industry, and she's like, hey, I found this pasta sauce at the grocery store that I love. And I was like, okay, do a cooking post. And while you're cooking, you're using this sauce. The post is you talking about, here's how I did on my latest race. It's not an actual promotional post for that pasta sauce, but you tag them. You can actually use the data to go to them and be like, hey, let's turn this into an actual series that we could do on social. They came to me and they're like, we love what you're doing on social media. We want to be your title sponsor. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. So that led into a multi-year, 6-figure deal, which was amazing. I didn't need a deck, or I didn't need a presentation to pitch to them. It was my social media.
I am very excited to welcome Megan Meyer today. She's a 2-time champion in drag racing, which is the most egalitarian form of motor racing. Look it up if you don't know what that means. She not only is a champion, but she's an expert in marketing. And she has a website called Motorsports Marketing Tips. And she also works with Erica Sietsma, who is AutoFluencer, who we interviewed a week ago. So thank you very much, Megan, for doing this.
Thank you for having me on, Freak.
Today, we are talking about racers and finding sponsorship and funding their racing efforts. And so what do you feel is the important thing for people to know or to prioritize in trying to be sponsored?
Yeah. Well, I guess the biggest thing is that it's always changing. What works today, like using AI, for example, like that wasn't around 10 years ago when I was racing professionally and looking for 6-figure sponsorship deals. So it's just always evolving. And back in the day, we tried to rely on like gold, silver, and bronze packages. And it was more about how many stickers could you have on your car, because you were guaranteed more media. There was, more focus on like newspapers and magazines and local radio shows, stuff like that. Whereas that stuff's kind of dying off now. And it's more about live streaming. But with that, you don't get as much dedicated media time. And I've noticed in the drag racing world, like they do less interviews with the drivers, at least on the sportsman side, which is where we race at. And so it's just always changing. You can't just have one method and stick to that for the rest of your life. You've got to change with the times and learn the new technology. But also there's quite a bit of turnover in the automotive and motorsports industry. So someone that probably was like the marketing director at a company has probably already moved on to a different position or a different brand. And so you've always just got to stay on top of it and not just rely on like the old school methods, because they're not going to work anymore.
Totally get that. In a past life, I worked in graphic design and print and layout. And one of our customers was Edelbrock.
Okay.
And I got to know Cammie Edelbrock very, very well because they were always doing something. And so I guess that kind of longevity with a company is, as you were saying, is gone.
Yeah. Yeah, unless it is, maybe someone like that where it's like in the family, it's where they might not have a choice. They're going to stick around. But yeah, I mean, actually one of our good friends that works at a company that's one of our longtime sponsors actually just got let go. And because they're thinking that, they could use more AI and they didn't quite need this person anymore. So I feel really bad for him because he was a good friend.
Right.
And, the whole backing of sponsorship is based on relationships. So we spent years, cultivating this relationship, getting to know him on a very personal level. And now he's not the decision maker anymore. So now it's kind of starting all over again with someone that's new, someone that is not familiar with motorsports, someone that doesn't know our history and like, what we do in drag racing. And so that's frustrating, but it does happen, unfortunately.
I never thought about that it's like a company having one big client. And when that client leaves, you're in trouble. So
Yeah.
it's, yeah. I never thought about that part of it before when I've seen the, STP sticker on a car, that was really a relationship with a person, most likely, rather than
Mhm.
the company.
Mhm.
So what do you see that are the most common mistakes that people make in trying to fund their racing?
Yeah, there's quite a few. The biggest one and most common that I see all the time is people think just because I have a race car, that company wants to advertise with it. And that's not always the case. Other than building the relationship with someone, you need to actually have a value that you can give to that company. And sometimes it has nothing to do with the race car. That's just an added bonus that you can have. And so, like I said, there's kind of less media out there as far as like what we call earned media. But, you're in charge of your own social media, or you could do
Mhm.
your own website, your own newsletter. You could do your own ads, like paid media. So you can use that as an asset. But if you're not on social media or if you don't have a newsletter, then you can't really use that. So a lot of people in motorsports are kind of behind on the times, and I totally get it because everyone is working a full-time job or two, and it's usually mom or dad is the truck driver and they've got a buddy that can come with them to help, check the air in the tires and fill up with gas at the racetrack. But when you're at home, it's usually you by yourself or, maybe with a spouse. So
Right.
doing their marketing and trying to find sponsorships is always the last thing on their plate. It's something that they're doing in the middle of the night after they've worked, a full shift. Maybe they have kids to take care of and sports to do. And so I totally understand because I am in that boat now. And it's not easy, but it is something that if you are a racer who is looking for outside funding, you have to treat it as an actual business. You need to spend time growing your network, growing your assets that you have there. And then and of course, it always comes down to relationships. So you've got to cultivate those relationships with a brand that not only you use their products and know who they are. There's so many people who are just like, oh, well, I need oil for my race car. So I'm going to reach out to every single oil company out there. And it's like, no, like, what's the one that you prefer? Like, which one do you notice might give you better performance or more longevity with your parts? And then you can use that as a testimonial to that specific brand. And so that's like something that I see with racers where they just try to like go to every company that's out there and think, hey, I have a race car. Do you want to advertise on it? And it's like,
Right.
no, like what else can you offer me? And so racers need to be, this is something that my mentor has told in every conversation. He brings this up. Racers need to be an extension of the marketing. They need to act like they're an
Mm.
actual employee. And so instead of it being like, hey, sponsor me, give me some money so I can go racing because this is my dream and I've always chased this dream to go and race these types of cars, you need to reframe it as, hey, if you sponsor me, I'm going to go to these events that you currently don't go to. I'm going to reach these audiences and maybe I can give out some samples of your product, or maybe I could get their contact information like by filling out a survey or doing a
Mhm.
giveaway. And then that way you can use that and give that information back to the sponsor or say, hey, we were able to sell this many products at this event or give away this many samples or this many coupons, something that you could then help with like the sales department. But if you're someone that kind of has never dabbled in business or dabbled in marketing, I understand how that could be really hard. And I
Right.
totally did not understand the proper way to go about sponsorships until about like not even 10 years ago. I'd say like 8 years ago was when it actually like finally clicked in my head, because before that it was more the old school way of, okay, let me create these 3 tiers and my biggest package is you're going to get the biggest logo on the side of my car and on my fire suit and our helmet and uniforms and maybe on the truck and trailer, and the trailer is going to be this rolling billboard for you, and we're going to get this many spectators at the races. and I'll do this many social media posts for you. And then like the next tier down is like a little bit less and then a little bit less.
Right.
And I used to waste so much time trying to figure out, okay, what do I put in each package? And then I would make PowerPoint presentations. And my background is also in graphic design. So I would spend so much time trying to design these really cool presentations. And then I would just email it to anybody and every email address that I had without actually having a conversation with them first and
Right.
understanding what it is that that brand is actually looking for, or what products they sell and or what problems they have. And so it's just, there's so many wrong ways to go about it that everyone does. And it's just kind of in our DNA. And it really is as simple as pick one product that you use, find a contact there, and LinkedIn is a great way to find their contact information. Or if you can go and meet them in person, that would be, the best case scenario. Make a good first impression with them. Do not bring up in that first conversation that you're looking for sponsorships. Just say, hey, I love your product. It's helped me do this. And I would love to just learn more about your brand and your company. And usually they'll say yes to a second meeting,
Okay.
which is kind of what we call like a discovery call. And that's where they get to talk about what makes their brand better than all their competitors, why their product is the best in the market, and let them do all the talking about themselves, but then figure out who's their target market, what issues are they having, are they trying to reach a new region? And then you can be like, oh, maybe I've got a race coming up in that area. It'd be awesome if I could get some samples and give them away at that track for you. And it can just start out as something small like that, and then it's going to take at least a year, if not years, to grow
Really?
into something that would be a funded partnership.
Okay. Wow. It's funny because as you're saying this, I was flashing back to, is this dating advice? You get them
Yeah,
talking
very
about
similar.
themselves and,
Yeah.
just listen and nod and
Yes. Yeah. Well, it's, a proposal is something that we use to pitch a partnership. And it's like you would never propose on the first date, or you would never send a proposal to someone you've never met before. So I think sometimes, something as common sense as that slips our mind because we're so excited. We're like, yes, I've got a race car. Maybe I've won a couple races, and so I got some credibility, and now it's like, now I'm ready to add some partners onto the team. And then yeah, people just kind of go send a proposal to every email address they can find without actually getting to know the person first.
that's a hysterical analogy. So you're talking about courtship,
Yeah.
It's wow. That's great. When you said it clicked for you, what was it that clicked for you?
Good question. So when I first had met my mentor, I feel like that was really when things started to come together. So he did write a book, and you can get the book on Amazon. It's called Motorsports Marketing. Very original name, but actually had a conversation with him today, and it's been 10 years since he first published the book. And so he is actually writing the second version and hope to have it done when we have the PRI show in December this year.
Okay.
So if anybody's listening that's going to attend the show, he will be there doing a education session like he always does, and we'll hopefully have the second version of his book out by then.
What's his name for people?
It's Alex Streiler.
Okay.
Yeah. So he is someone that was really one of the first ones within the motorsports industry that was sharing their knowledge and education about how to get sponsorships, because before that it was very gate kept, like no one shared anything. And so that's where we were always like, you would Google, how do I get a sponsor? And it'd tell you, okay, you need a gold, silver, and a bronze package. And so he was the first one to be like, get rid of that. You don't need that. But he was also sharing it from his own experience. So he worked at Lucas Oil, and his position there was to go get was to get sponsors for the different series and events that Lucas Oil hosts. So they're not exactly the same as what a racer does, but very similar. So when I first read his book, that's when it really like started to connect. Before that, we've had a couple sponsors for my dad's team, and my dad's been drag racing for almost 50 years. So I've been born into it. So I've been around it my entire life. And growing up, I was the one who kind of did more of the marketing, the sponsorship communications for my dad. My dad taught me how to use a camera. So I'd be there, taking his pictures at the track. And this was before social media or before video was really a thing.
Right.
And so, it was so funny because I feel like I'm old now. But yeah, so I'd go to the track and I'd take my dad's picture because we were just a small family run operation. I'd be the one taking pictures. My mom and my sister were working on the car with him. And then we'd usually have one or two other crew guys that were just volunteers. My dad also taught me how to write a press release. Back then, my sister and I were just only racing locally, our junior dragsters. But I would do the same thing. So I'd take my picture. So I'd have to like figure out how to set up a camera and set a timer and then go stand by the car with like my trophy for the weekend.
Oh,
or
this
just
is adorable.
Have my mom come and take my picture. And then I'd write up, a couple paragraphs of how our race did. Then actually my dad had a lady drive the car, and her background was in photography, and she was doing some graphic design and some marketing. So she is actually the one who kind of led me down the path to graphic design and stuff. And she created a website for my dad, and that was an agreement that they had. And so that was like, gosh, back in like 2008. So then I learned website coding. And so I would update our website like after the races. And so I just was learning along the way and would go to the trade shows with my dad to meet people. And I will never forget this one moment. There's a guy that had known my dad for a long time, worked with him for years, very like well-established company that he worked at. Well, he still works there today, thankfully. And I remember I sent out a mass email to like everyone that was on my dad's email contacts. And I was just like, hey, my dad and I are going to be at the PRI show coming up. Would love to stop by your booth and meet you and say hi. And honestly, I was trying to be like, hey, we want a sponsorship without coming off that
I'm
direct.
sure nobody saw through that ruse.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, and so I remember we walk up to this booth, and it was someone who was like, would give my dad like a couple of free parts that would help us out. And the very first thing he says to me, and I'm probably like maybe 14, 15 years old at this time, very first thing he says to me is, hey, I got your email, but we've already met before. And I just I didn't quite remember who he was because someone I'd see maybe once a year. And I just immediately was so embarrassed, wanted to cry. And it's like, this is hard. I just didn't know what to say because be like, I just sent out a mass email. It wasn't personalized. So he called me out on it. And so then from there, it's like, okay, I need to figure out how to do this a little bit better. So then I just kind of learn over time what to do, what not to do. And then we've got a couple sponsors. We had worked with agencies and talent managers to kind of find new sponsors for us. And those were good, but we didn't really make a whole lot of money with them because they're expensive and, having to pay a monthly retainer and all that. So didn't last that long. So then after I graduated college, my dad was like, hey, I'll let you race for a year for free. Because at that time, that was my ultimate goal, is I wanted to drive my dad's race car. And we had an agreement. And my dad was very strict. He was like, if I got all A's through high school and college, then he would allow me to race his car. So I did that. So I got all A's. I got on the summa cum laude or whatever it was called. And so then I did my first year. And also at the time, so that was when, I was studying graphic design. So then I really learned about how to do video editing, learned all about social media, how to do blogs, how to do YouTube videos. And that was actually homework assignments assignments. I
Wow.
screen printed our own t-shirts. I printed our own hero cards. So then I feel like I had all this stuff. I was making a brand for Randy Meyer Racing, but then also there's Megan Meyer Racing. So I get out of college and there's this apparel company that was like, hey, we want to do a collab with you and, have you sell our t-shirts and we'll give you an affiliate deal. And this was like really the first brand deal that I've ever had. And I got so excited and I made them my title sponsor, did an entire photo shoot for this company who never even paid me a penny, like completely ghosted me after this happened, after I sold a bunch of their t-shirts. But the car looked
Oh,
really cool, so we left the wrap on. Actually got best appearing car at like my second race that I did. But at that time, I was the youngest driver and I was the only one who was on social media. So I was
uh,
getting a lot of attention, good and bad.
yeah.
And
Well,
but then my second year, one of our sponsors one of our partners, they were again just a product only supplier, but they came to me and they're like, "We love what you're doing on social media. We want to be your title sponsor." And I was like, "Oh
mm,
my gosh, this is so cool." So that led into a multi-year six-figure deal, which was amazing. And so learned a lot from then. And so, yeah, so I don't know, kind of going back to your question, there wasn't like, I mean, I guess maybe that was the moment where it like really clicked. And also that like I didn't need a deck or I didn't need a presentation to pitch to them. It was my social media. And even though it was only like my second year racing, so I didn't have that much credibility, my second year in the top alcohol dragster ranks. But yeah, I don't know. I built up a brand and made a name for myself and then I got noticed. And, back then it was a lot easier. So this was 2015, 2014. Much easier back then to get noticed
yeah.
on social media than it is now. There's a lot of noise out there
Yeah.
now. Harder to stand out.
I've always had this life theory that motion attracts more emotion, that doing something attracts people that want to do with
Yeah.
you. So it kind of sounds like that is applicable here, that
Yeah.
your racing and social media and your graphic and all of that brought things to you, maybe in an equal amount that you're chasing things brought things to you. I don't know. I'm putting words in your mouth here.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, no, it's so cool to look back and think of, like one decision led me down a whole nother path
Hmm.
that, wasn't planned or didn't know was possible. And if I never decided to go down the route of doing marketing and graphic design, then it's like,
Right.
I probably wouldn't have, been as accomplished as I am now. I definitely wouldn't have had a brand, probably would be someone that didn't post on social media. It's just crazy to kind of think back of like, if I did something different, where would that have taken me? And I wouldn't change anything. There's good times, there's bad times, but the bad times you always learn a lesson and it might take a year to understand what that lesson was that you had to learn. But yeah, and also, you had mentioned earlier the women in motorsports North America group,
Hmm.
and that's also something that I made it a priority of mine to join groups like that when I was
Hmm.
young.
Hmm.
There's one called Women in Auto Care that has a big presence at the SEMA and Apex show. That was one where I've made a ton of connections at. And there's the Shift Up Now group
Right.
that I've been able to have, amazing friendships and so many opportunities to do stuff outside of the race car, but also get some extra funding to go racing because
Okay.
of that group. And it's just cool to kind of be a part of those groups and communities and also, just being out there to network. There's, so many times where I've been told no when asked to have a sponsorship or, being rejected. And I mean, just like with a courtship, sometimes you're going to get rejected until you find the right one and you just got to keep going. And yeah, just like not give up, like keep staying in motion. If it was a no this year, it might be a yes next year. So don't burn that bridge with them.
Right.
Um, but yeah,
It
It's
it
a lot.
it it feels like you may have a new app. It's called sponsorship dating.
Yeah.
Swipe left, swipe right. So,
Right? Yeah.
knowing what you know now, who are the people at the companies that you use their oil or their superchargers or their tires? What is the title you're looking to connect?
Good question. So it usually, well, it'll go one of two ways. So if it's a company that is already active in your sport, so for
Hmm.
me, drag racing, we are able to kind of have a closer connection to a marketing manager or a marketing director. And that would be the person that is the sponsorship decision maker or one level down. So maybe it's the president who has to, actually make the
Right.
decision, but they can take it to that person. But if it is a brand where maybe they're kind of newer into the space, not as present, then that's where you could go to a regional sales manager.
Okay.
And then that person could then take you to that next step to be the marketing manager or, whoever kind of their boss would be. And I've noticed that usually if it is a company that is newer in a space, maybe they've came out with a new oil product that's now built for drag racing cars, then usually it is going to be like the regional sales manager, and maybe they have one or two salesmen with them that are going to be at the tracks because they're going to want to go up to teams and ask them, what oil are you using? Are you happy with the performance? Would you be interested in trying out something new? And so then that's where you're able to then kind of get that contact more
Okay.
easily. But then kind of once they're more established, then those people kind of move on to the next thing that they're trying to add on. And then that's where maybe the marketing manager is the one who is then coming to the races and the events. And maybe they're trying to bring in new customers or new vendors. And it's more of an entertainment situation because they want them to become a new, buyer of their
Right.
products. And that's where we can then be like, hey, we'll give you VIP passes if you are a sponsor of ours. And then that way they can use that for this new vendor that they're trying to work with and be like, hey, we've got tickets to this race, but we've also got a suite with catering and hospitality. You can go do a meet and greet with the driver. And this is an experience that a regular fan, general admission can't buy. And that's where you can use that as an asset for the company that you're working with. And then usually it's the tickets that you give them are usually going to someone else that they're trying to impress. It's not, sometimes it is also more internal where they're going to bring on more employees. Like we've done it to where a company has set a competition with their sales team, and whoever hits a certain
Mm,
quota will get
right.
these tickets and they can go take their family to the races.
Right.
So yeah, so that's a way that we can work with them. But yeah, kind of two different positions that we're looking for.
Given what I said earlier, that part of what I see my initiative to be at some point is to bring people that aren't already in racing, because not to be mean to anybody, that's the larger part of the world
Yeah.
that especially among women. What would be a way now if we're going to, Megan and Frank are going to think way outside the box, knowing what Megan knows. If you wanted to try and attract a sponsor that has nothing to do with motorsports, what would be the way you would do that to break open new markets in the way that F1 Academy has Hello Kitty and Elf Cosmetics and Tommy
Yeah.
Hilfiger? And, it's like it's happening. I'm just wondering what's your perspective of that, of what you would think would be the best way to try and attract those non-racing sponsors.
Yeah, good question. So I would first start off with knowing what your, how do I want to call it? Like what would be within your atmosphere that would be
Whoop.
achievable. So if it's someone who is maybe just a hobby racer or someone who's just grassroots, they don't need to try to reach the Elf Cosmetics or
Right.
Rolex watches or Monster energy drinks, because that's outside of their scope.
Right. Right.
So something that would be more like a regional or a local company would be better to reach out to. And it would also be easier because then it's less people that you have to try to talk to, or someone at like Monster Energy. I don't know how many employees they have, but they've probably got dozens of people just on their marketing team. So if you try to reach out to the wrong one, then it's going to go nowhere. Whereas if it is someone that maybe it's like a mom and pop store, or maybe it's we're going to the farmer's market today. So maybe it's, someone like that, where it's just like a working mom or a working dad, and maybe they're looking to, expand or something like that. So that would be easier. So kind of understand like your scope and what would actually be realistic as far as, how big the company is. And then I would see, the first thing that I would do is just have a conversation with them, kind of like what I said, like a discovery call, like just get to know who they are, the product. If you haven't used the product before, just, see if it's something that you would want to represent that brand or that product. You make sure it actually works. It's not something that's, would be fraud or anything like that.
Right.
It's something that you would be proud to represent. Like, for me personally, like I don't drink alcohol that often. And so I don't want to go out to a local winery and say, hey, I want to work together, because I wouldn't be a true ambassador of that product. I wouldn't use that product or drink the wine, right?
And alcohol and racing seems kind of cross purposes. So
yeah.
Drinking and driving.
We actually did a whole campaign about slow down and move over. So we're kind of like anti that, because we do come from the towing industry, which is a whole nother story.
Right.
But yeah, so like that would not align with my values and my brand. So also a racer needs to understand, what do they personally like? What do they not like? What would be a brand that they would actually be proud to work with, and what to pitch and, ask their audience to buy. And then the next thing that I would work on is building up your social media. I know it can be a headache, but that is always the very first thing that I hear. And Erica might have mentioned this as well, but from the brand side, as soon as they see your name or get an email from you, or meet you, or get your business card, the first thing they're going to do is look you up on social media and try to get to know who you are. Are you someone that does post on there? Do you have a good audience size? So as a racer, trying to grow that part of it. And then, and then also just then try to figure out what could be something you can offer to this company outside of just advertising on a race car. Could you maybe help them set up a local vendor? Maybe your friend's dad owns a local grocery store, and, kind of sticking with like kind of food and beverage. So say I did reach out to a local winery, maybe they're not sold in this grocery store. So maybe I could be that person in the middle and go to the winery and say, hey, I can get your products into this new store. Let's build a three-way partnership that way. And so that way you get part of the cut and those funds do go directly to your race program. And then from there, I mean, that could be, like I said in the beginning, that could be a partnership where it is not relying on the race car. Kind of the situation we talked about in the beginning with IHRA closing down. When we have sponsors that rely on our performance and the races we go to, and then the series shuts down, we're no longer allowed to go do that. And so it's so much better if you could kind of find those business to business partnerships, because then the race car is just the added bonus. Then that could be another level you can add on to it and be like, hey, well, for, a little bit extra money, we could do a whole wrap on the car. And then maybe I could do a display with the race car at the winery when they're having a big event coming up or something like that. So trying to keep the race car out of it. And
interesting.
Think of like your network and who you know, or who could you meet locally and regionally. And honestly, like there's so many like Facebook groups of different communities, and you can use LinkedIn. You can go to their direct social media. So it's much easier in the digital age to find and just do some research of who that could be.
It's so interesting because this is not the first time B2B has come up as a function. You talk about wearing a lot of hats as a racer and a race team manager and a race team owner. Well, you're also a business consultant, a deal finder.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me find a deal between this company and
Yes.
this company, and I am in the
Exactly.
middle and I benefit from that, whether or not I have a race car,
Hmm.
and I just
Yeah.
use my proceeds to improve my racing. When you're talking about the mom and pop stuff or any of that, Erica had talked about pre-tagging people and including them in posts before you even approach them,
Yeah.
which,
Yeah.
per what you just said, makes a lot of sense. Can you
Mhm.
explain for people that haven't seen Erica's interview?
Yeah. Yeah. So that is a strategy that we have also dabbled with our team with new products. So again, going back to a product that we already use, we like it, we can give them a testimonial, we can give them a review, and maybe it's something that is just already naturally in our social media posts, or it's in the background in the shop. Maybe it's there's a can of it sitting right there on the shelf in the
Right,
garage.
right.
And so you can, without it turning into a promotional post, you can go ahead and tag them or mention them in the comment, or, use their hashtag. If you use a software like AutoFluencer, will automatically categorize your post based on what companies you've tagged or mentioned or hashtagged. And then it will spit out a report for you to say, hey, here's your results. So how many views, how much engagement it got. And then it also gives you a dollar amount of how much this is worth. And that is, if that company wanted to do a paid ad, this is kind of the equivalent of how much they would have to pay Facebook or Instagram in order to see the same results. And usually a brand's social media account does not perform as well as someone that is like an ambassador or a public figure, someone that's already got a larger following and more personal. They have
Mm-hmm.
an established brand versus a company that's just out there and their posts are usually about, here's the features of all of our products, right? They usually don't get much engagement with those types of posts. So they would have to boost their post or pay more in order to get that same level. So
Oh,
then
okay.
we can just use this report that AutoFluencer automatically makes for us. And, say we have been trying to nurture and work on this relationship with someone at the company. I could then send this report to them and be like, hey, by the way, I used your product in this latest video that I was doing, and here's the results that it got unintentionally, having your product in there. They're usually like, oh, wow, that's really cool. Like there's some potential there. And then that could then turn into, well, how about we could work up a deal where I will do some promotional posts. Maybe I'll do 3 a month. Here's my fees, or here's my rate of how much that would be. We like to follow the 5x for return on investment. So say this report for AutoFluencer says that you provided $500 in earned media value based on one post or however many posts.
Right.
Basically what we do is say, so you'd send that to the company, say, hey, I was able to generate $500 in exposure for you. If you would like to, work together, my rate is $100, because the goal is I want to 5x their investment.
I
So if
see.
they give
Okay.
me $100, I want to give them $500 back. Some people might get confused because they're not actually going to see, it's not $500 in sales that's
Right.
going directly into their bank account, which that could happen, which that's awesome if it does. That I'm not a
Then you're
huge
going to
fan.
ask for $200.
Yeah, yes. Then you can be like, okay, well, now we're going to up that. Like,
Right.
you could do an affiliate link, but it's so much harder now to have affiliate links and get someone to leave social media to go and buy a product, unless it's like something that they absolutely need right now. Back in the day, it used to be a lot easier to do promotions and affiliates and all that type of stuff. Now, every single person has 20 different affiliate links that they're always promoting. So it's just harder to get consumers to actually purchase through that. So, just communicating that, hey, this is not a return on investment in sales. This is a return on investment in brand awareness that we're
Right.
focusing on.
Well, that's in Frank and Megan's current effort to think outside the box. I was thinking of not motor oils or tools or anything else, but hats or coats or whatever,
Yeah.
that if, you like a particular brand and that's your style and you want to promote it,
Yeah.
you could include it. And then with AutoFluencer, you could show, I brought you this much value and awareness. And
Exactly.
besides, it looks great on me.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Actually, Eric and I had a meeting with someone who is in the motorsports industry, and she had mentioned, she's like, hey, I found this pasta sauce at the grocery store that I love. And I was like, okay, do a cooking post. And while you're cooking, you're using this sauce. The post is you're not there to actually promote the sauce. The post is you talking about, here's how I did on my latest race. Here's the story, or, maybe, somehow how you could tie that in. But the visual is you cooking, making this pasta and all this type of stuff. Maybe it's like, here's how I meal prep for when I'm at the
Right.
racetrack,
Right.
And then, so so it's not an actual promotional post for that pasta sauce, but, you're showing the bottle, the label,
Right.
in that post. You tag them. If they repost it, if they share it, that's great. But then, yeah, you can actually use the data to go to them and be like, hey, let's turn this into an actual series that we could do on social.
I hope I live long enough to see the change that women are going to make to motorsports in every possible way, from getting sponsorship by cooking pasta. It's just, it's just not
Yeah.
something that would have happened without women doing this. So what should somebody do today or this week to improve their ability to get sponsored?
Good question. So I would say, for me, I'm very type A. So I like to have.
You did say summa cum laude, so
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, it would be, I want to make a checklist and have some tangible goals that it's going to push me to get outside my comfort zone, but not so big to where it's going to overwhelm me. So maybe it's, make 3 social media posts. So if I'm someone who is not consistent or not frequently posting on social media, okay, so this week I need to do 2 to 3 social media posts, and that could be about anything. I'm going to write up an email to send out, maybe just start a newsletter list. I'm a big fan of newsletters because
Okay.
one day social media might be gone, or it might freeze or be shut down temporarily, which has happened in the past. So just being able to have an audience on a different platform. So start a newsletter, and then one of your social media posts could be, hey, I'm starting this newsletter. Here's the topics I'm going to talk about. And it doesn't have to always be racing. It can be personal. I've started my blog and my newsletter just sharing personal stuff that I was doing back in the day. So, and then I would try to find 5 brands that I would want to work with, whether that is inside or outside of the industry. And then just do a little bit more research where their headquarters are at. If they are, a regional or local company, go to their website and see if they're doing any current promotions or advertising for a certain product right now, if they have a sale going on. And then look them up on LinkedIn. You can go, search the company, and you can find the employees, and you can do search for anything that says like marketing or manager or director in their title, or like we said, like a regional sales manager. So see if you can find a contact there, but don't reach out to them yet. I would just start to interact with their public posts, just so you can kind of get on their radar. And that's where I would start.
Right.
Without getting overwhelmed.
For a lot of people, I think they're going to think that's a lot, but you're absolutely right. Those are the ways to go. And it's worked for you. I haven't talked about your website, Motorsport Marketing Tips.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So that started in 2020. So when we were going through COVID and the racing season was temporarily shut down. And actually, funny story. So we were in Florida for our first race of the year and just finished setting up the pit area. It was just me and my dad there. No one else was there yet. Just got everything all set up. And the announcer at the track comes on and says, the race is canceled. Everybody needs to load up their trailer and be off the property within 24 hours. And so we, hadn't really been watching the news that day or anything. So didn't exactly know why or what was going on. So we had to get creative of like, okay, well, here's my dad's had a Bronco that he got from his brother and it needed some work. So it's like, okay, we're going to do a video changing the spark plugs on the Bronco and then, a video of us changing the oil on the lawnmower. And so we just had to like get creative because like our sponsors had given us all this product money to go racing. And we couldn't. And so we still wanted to kind of fulfill our contract, which actually had led me onto like I've done quite a bit with my daily driver, which is a Ford Explorer. And my sponsors are like, we love that content because that is relatable to the average consumer. So they're like, more with that. Like the race car is cool, but not everybody has a dragster, right?
Nobody on my block does.
Right. Yeah. So kind of going back to your question, that was something that, so in 2020, it's like, okay, things are shifting. It's less focused on racing. How can we get creative with other things? But also at that same time, the sponsors that I was working with, they were coming to me and they were like, hey, you do a great job on social media, but these 100 other racers that we sponsor and give products to, they suck at social media. So can you help them out? And it's like, well, I've got nothing else to do. And so then I created a course. So I recorded like 20 videos. I created a course called Driven by Social Academy. Before that, though, I was blogging. I was building a newsletter list. And sometimes it would be like advice, but it was more like personal stuff on my blogs and articles and all that type of stuff. So I had an email list that I was already cultivating. So I just sent out an email offer to everyone on my newsletter list and was like, hey, I made this course on social media 101. If you want to buy it, it's $75 and I sold a bunch of it on day one. And then I was like there could be something here.
Ding.
And so then, I went down the whole rabbit hole of how to become a coach, how to become an educator. So then after that, like the end of 2020, I made another course and coaching program about how to get sponsors. And but then also 2020 was my last year of drag racing, and that was by choice because I got married and got pregnant. And so I knew that I wasn't going to be racing in 21 or moving forward. And so I still wanted to be involved, in the industry. I was still going to races to be the team's photographer and videographer and get the media for the Randy Meyer Racing social media pages. But then it's like, okay, what is Megan Meyer or who is Megan Meyer Racing now that I'm not racing? And so then that's when I created the Motorsports Marketing tips, because racers would come to me all the time too. I mean, kind of exact same questions that you've been asking, and even something as simple as, how do I make a Instagram reel? So I would just like, okay, people are asking me how to do this. I would just write up a blog post or I'd record a video of like, here's how I do it. And it was helping people. And it's just so cool to kind of see, I was just putting stuff out on the internet and there's people from all over the world that were coming to me and buying products. It's just so cool because I've been able to build really good relationships and friendships with people that have been my customers and clients. And there's been quite a few that are international. And actually, one of the very first girls who was a student of mine, she's in Australia. She has since come over here and driven my dad's race car and been actually a part of our team. She was able to use what I taught to go find some funding to come all the way to the States and race with us. So it's just so cool. It's so fulfilling. I never thought that that's what I would do. And I really had no plan after I got married. Like I didn't know what I was going to do. Kind of like what I said earlier, like we're in the towing industry. So I thought I would just kind of work at the tow truck shop for the rest of my life. But then, yeah, my dad sold it and I got let go, and then it's like, okay, like I need something to do.
Right.
And then that's when I met Erica, and it was just like perfect timing, because up to that point, I was keeping track of all of our analytics from all of our social media posts on both accounts. And I was just using spreadsheets to see our views and engagements. And when I do tag a sponsor, how many posts that was. And I was actually doing, again, going back to manual time and PowerPoint presentations, I would take screenshots of whenever I tag a sponsor. And then each month I would have a presentation that I'd send over to them. It's like, okay, here's not only our race results on the track, but here's our results on social media. And I did 10 posts for you last month, and here's the performance, and here's screenshots of all the comments. And I was actually like on the phone with one of our sponsors before going to like PRI show, and was like, I'm going to make an app to do this because I'm spending hours in spreadsheets. And actually my mentor's son is an AI. So it's like, I'm going to reach out to him to make me an app to do this, because I'm spending so much time just getting spreadsheets or getting screenshots and using the Meta Business Suite to look at every individual post. And I would also compare the one on the desktop compared to the actual post on my phone, because sometimes they wouldn't be the same.
Right. Yes.
And so then it's so funny because, it was just like destiny. I met Erica at PRI, and she was like, hey, I'm making this thing called AutoFluencer. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I want to make. It's like, thank God you already made it, because I don't know anything about making a software.
Right.
Like I can make a website, but not a software. And
Right.
so then I've just been one of the first users of it and helped shape it to what it is now. And now we work full time together, and I love it.
That's awesome. I love the synchronicity of that.
Yeah.
Just to summarize for people about your website, it sounds like it's got a lot of instructional information on it that's right on topic for today.
Yeah. I try to keep it, I try to have it to where it's, explain, here's instructions of how to do something.
Right.
Or, kind of go in depth without it going over someone's head. But there's topics on social media, sponsorship, and marketing. And there's quite a few that are outdated, especially the social media ones. Like I said, like they're talking about IGTV. So I do need to go and update some of those older posts. But I try to do it monthly now. So I was doing blog posts like every week, but just being a mom, life gets busy. So I try to just do at least one a month now.
Okay.
And the latest one I did actually was our Q2 reports that I do. So like I just said, doing monthly reports to sponsors. I also do quarterly review reports for our partners, because they're not always watching every single race that we're at, or they're not always on top of our social media. So they might not know, hey, we won this race a few weeks ago, or hey, here's a new driver that we plan to bring onto our team. So I like to do quarterly reports. So actually my last blog post was about our Q2 reports and how I structure that for our partners. And I like to just have like tangible info in there of like, here's how you can do it too. And I do mention AutoFluencer in there because our reviews do include our social media reports. And it's so awesome that I can do it within seconds and not tire a day in a spreadsheet.
You've mentioned blogging a bunch of times here. Where do you do the blogging? Where would people find your blog?
Yeah, so it's just the Motorsports Marketing Tips. That is my blog. I don't have my courses on there anymore. And so it just got too much to maintain and upkeep because the platforms are changing all the time. So I don't have my courses, or I don't do any more coaching anymore just because I don't have the capacity to, especially because this last year, my husband and I have gotten into off-road racing, which has been so much fun, but I don't really have the time to helping out other racers as much as I used to. So, but I do still try to do my emails and blogs and working with Erica to make a software to help other racers. And then also I have a podcast with a friend. So one of my good friends, which her husband races in off-road, so she has a company that does have solutions for racers more on the merchandise and apparel side. So it's called Racer on Demand. And so the podcast that we have for that is called the Racer on Demand Show. And that's where we bring on marketing directors that we personally know, and we ask them, what's their advice? What do they see in the motorsports industry? What are they looking for when they choose to sponsor a racer or an athlete? And so it's just cool to hear, their direct feedback.
Yes, absolutely. From the people that are doing it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's fabulous. Well, I'm glad you mentioned that because I wouldn't have asked about that. But I think those are great resources for anybody watching this. So that's all I can think of, Megan. I appreciate it so much. You've been very generous with your time, and it's been a pleasure to talk with you.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it so much.